Hey everyone, welcome back to Jade Plants. It's me again, Mark. Today we're back at the greenhouse and this is a quite rainy morning right now while we are recording. And this is not very usual during the summertime that we will get rains like this. But yeah, it's raining and I'm glad for it because our rain or shine succulents will be rained on. And now I have prepared for you in this video our jade plants, all of the Crassula Ovata varieties that I have. Though one of these is not really a Crassula Ovata anymore, but I think you can categorize it with the other jade plants that we have because it looks the same. So I have 6 different varieties here that I wanted to show you, and then after I show you all of the varieties that we have, we're gonna be talking about the tips and my advice on how to keep these lovely plants alive. You might already have known, if you've been watching the channel for a long time, that I've always had troubles with growing jade plants and I've killed several of them, but I'm happy that I'm able to make them alive right now. So now let's just start with the first type that I will be showing to you, and this is our ordinary Crassula Ovata. Okay, so look at that. So it's a really nice plant. Okay, I can say that these have already grown, and if you look at it from the back, it looks like it's kind of etiolated, really. Okay, probably because I've been placing it like this, so the sunlight is on this direction, so it's growing more leaves on this side rather than on the back, so which is why it's kind of etiolated right here. And you can see here all the lovely growth that it has, all the nice round green leaves that sometimes they get these red edges on them, and I think that will become more prominent when you give your jade plant much more sunlight. So there are different varieties of Crassula Ovata. I will be showing some of them right now. Okay, but I think there is a variety of this one that gets much more red and much more lighter green in color compared with this one. So I'm not sure if this is the one that can get much more red, but I believe that generally a lot of Crassula Ovata will get red edges once you manage to give it full sun, once you grow it in a full rain or shine situation probably, or a full sun location. You can see here the flappiness of the leaves. Okay, once it goes limp like this, okay, when it gets wilted, as I've said before, it is probably the time to water your plant. Okay, and once the potting mix is dry. So you can see here there is limping on this one. Okay, so you can also get those limping if the plant is not establishing very well. So if your plant is not establishing, it will not plump up those leaves. What you can tell, a healthy plant would have like these leaves up top, which will go upward. Okay, that's when you can tell that the plant is getting enough sunlight and it's established and it's growing and it's absorbing the water. If the leaves perk up like that, okay, if your leaves are flapping down, probably you are giving it a bad potting mix, or probably it's not getting the light, so it's stretching out, so it's lying flat. But if your leaves are going up like this, then that means the plant is getting the right amount of sunlight that it needs. Okay, so we have that. Now the next one, another common one here in the Philippines, is this Golem Jade, and I'm not sure if this is Golem or the Hobbit because sometimes they look the same, but this is one of those mutated forms of the Crassula Ovata. It is the same plant, but this one is mutated in such a way that you can see here the leaves grow in this like rounded fashion, and you can see on the tips right there, okay, you can see there that they are like folded upwards, kind of like that how the Echeveria topsy-turvy is mutated. Okay, and sometimes it will look like these ears. So there are varieties of this one that is called Shrek ears, and there is a variety that is called Golem, and there is a variety called Hobbit. So they are all like based on fictional character names. Okay, so yeah, that is one nice form of the Crassula Ovata. You can see that once this one grows, it kind of gets into the more compact size, compact shape, because of the mutation of the leaves. They look much more dense. They have this weight to them that is not on the flat leaf version. So even though you have a few leaves, you can see that they are already clumping already because the leaves are very round and they are like folded inwards, so they have that much more fuller appearance. But yeah, it is still the same plant I would recommend the same potting mix on this one and the same sunlight. Okay, if this plant of yours is not growing, then that means you have done something wrong with the potting mix. Okay, so if you can take care of the Crassula Ovata, the normal version, then you can already take care of this one as well. Okay, so we're gonna be talking about the potting mix, by the way, later on in this video. Okay, so we have that. There's also another variety of this one called no, not called, another variety of this one that is variegated, and that is quite expensive. I still have to look for that plant. I still have to add that to our collection, but yet there is a variegated version of this one. It's just not very popular, so not a lot of growers have it, and because of that, the prices haven't gone too low. It's still a very expensive type of Crassula. The next one we have is this one, the Ripple Jade. Ripple Jade. Okay, this is not Crassula Ovata anymore. This is Crassula arborescens. Some other references online will call this the Crassula Bluebird. Okay, Crassula Ovata Bluebird, and this is probably called like that because the leaves are much more lighter and they're much more on the bluer, cooler color compared with the more vibrant, more lush green that we have on the Crassula Ovata. Okay, so we have that. Okay, my face can't fit in the frame anymore. Okay, so this is the arborescens, and this is the ordinary one. And what is different about the arborescens, okay, the Ripple Jade, you can see the leaves are very rippled. Okay, they are wavy when they come out. They have this nice light colored green leaves. Okay, and they also got some nice edges to them. Okay, which will make them add interest to the leaf right now. Okay, so that's what we have here. What you can see on this plant of mine, there are some dried up leaves because I haven't been watering again. Okay, I've been neglecting my plants, and there is some burn. Okay, but I can see that on the new growth, it's pretty much clean. Okay, so we can expect the new growth to come out of that, and yeah, make for a much better looking plant. And what I want to do with these ones, actually with the jade plant as well, I want them to grow into this bushy type Crassula Ovatas, because you can see from Ma'am Laura Eubanks channel on her Design for Serenity projects. Okay, they grow these really large jade plants. And this Ripple Jade plant as well, she uses it on her landscape design, and she says that it's a much more behaved one compared with the ordinary Crassula Ovata, and it gets into this like clumping, like ball shaped plants already once you manage to grow it full, and it doesn't like become messy. Okay, it still stays to its size, it doesn't etiolate very much. So that's what I like about it. So I'm hoping that we can make this one big and make this one like grow a lot more. I will be putting it up into much more larger pots. Okay, if it gets too scraggly, I will be cutting off the tips so that we will get much more branching on this one. Okay, or if it gets too ugly, if the old leaves get too ugly, then we will just snip it off, and once I know that the plant is established, it will just produce new leaves from the side branches. Okay, so that's what you can expect with this one. I'm still gonna have to experiment on that. That's just a theory for now, but I'm hoping that we can do it later once the plant is more established. Okay, so we have that. So now we're gonna go on to the more expensive ones. Okay, let's just start with the more usual still, but this is not very usual, but yeah, I like it. It's very unique. Okay, this is our Crassula Crosby's compact. Okay, that's the name. You can see here the branches that it has. Okay, it kind of looks like a bonsai tree, and you can see the compact leaves on that compact leaves. So we have that much more prominent red edges on this one compared with the Crassula Ovata, the ordinary version. This one has much more prominent edges, and this one I heard, or someone told me, that this gets much more red much more quickly than the Crassula Ovata. So that is the Crosby's compact. So you give this a lot more light and it will get lighter color and much more prominent red edges on that. So you just have to put it into a much more brighter location. This one is currently growing here in my space. Okay, I think it's growing, yeah, I think it's growing here. So I'm trying to give it more sun as I can, as more sun as possible. And yeah, it's been staying compact. You can see all the new growth, and the leaves have stayed upright. So what I did with this plant, actually, after planting it, I didn't do the top watering method. anymore, I just bottom watered it right away because it was very wilted. It was very tired after a few days after planting it. So I just watered it, bottom watering, and then it plumped back up again like this one. Okay, and that's what you can do with your Crassula ovata. You don't have to be mindful, or you don't have to worry about them rotting too much once the potting mix is dry, and once you're using that right type of potting mix. They're actually very thirsty compared with your other succulents. You can water this one very often and you won't have any problems with it, and it will actually look better if you water them a little more than usual. With these trunks, okay, with these branches, okay, they're much more resistant to watering. They don't rot very often. Just make sure that the potting mix is dry and the leaves are kind of wilted in some way, okay, that they're not full, they're not plump anymore, okay, then that means you can water them up. Okay, so that's what I would recommend with these plants. Okay, so now we're gonna go with the more expensive ones, since I wanted to add some variety to my jade plant collection. Very carefully now. Okay, so I'm seeing some weird spots on my plant right now, and I'm just seeing it right now. Okay, there are some spots right there. Okay, so that is our Crassula Ovata variegata. Okay, this is the variegated Crassula Ovata, and this one is kind of mutated in some way as well because it has this wavy type of leaves. Okay, look at that, you can see that. So it has those nice wavy leaves, probably because of the variegation, because I'm seeing that where the variegation is, the waves are also there. When I'm looking at this plant, the leaves look like they're like brushed with paint. So that's what how I would describe the plant. It's looking like it's brushed with paint, and that's how the variegation looks. Okay, so it looks white and sometimes light green in color. Okay, it still has some variation. It doesn't have very even variegation on the leaves. So no leaf on this one is non-variegated. All of the leaves on this one is variegated, I can tell. There are just varying amounts of variegation on that one, but yeah, I think so far the variegation on this one is very consistent. I would say this is not the Crassula arborescens variety because the leaves are much more thicker. Okay, and this one has much more thinner leaves. This one has thicker leaves. And the green on this one doesn't look like this. Okay, the green on this one looks like the Crassula ovata. So I think this is the Crassula ovata variegated version. Now we still have another variegated version of the Crassula ovata, but this is a nice looking one. Okay, and it's much more compact right now, but I'm hoping that we can make it grow a little more. Okay, so we have that. And finally, onto our last variety here. This is our Crassula Hamel Sunset, and this is the newest one in my collection. Okay, kind of looks like a Cotyledon urbiculata right now. Compared with the Crassula ovata, I would say this one has much more wider leaves. Okay, look at that. Look at the leaves. Compare it. Okay, so if you can compare it, look at it. Look at it. Okay, the leaves on this one are much more smaller, and the leaves on this one is much more bigger. Okay, so there is a difference to the Cotyledon Hamel Sunset. This is not just the not Cotyledon, Crassula. This is not just the normal Crassula ovata. This is a very different variety, and you can see it has much more bigger leaves. Okay, so we have that. Let me just lay this one before this is getting very, very heavy, really. Okay, I just watered them, by the way, so they don't look bad when in this video. You can see on this one it's already getting flappy, so I bottom watered it, and some of the leaves have perked back up, so I'm hoping that it will just establish smoothly. Okay, so this is Crassula Hamel Sunset, and you can see the nice variegation, the light colored leaves that it has in contrast with the much more darker leaves at the center. Okay, I'm not sure, probably this is the Crassula arborescens, because there is a Crassula arborescens variety that doesn't wave like this one. It's not wavy like this one. It has flatter leaves, and it's much more bigger than the Crassula ovata. So I'm not sure, I still have to confirm it, but this is Crassula Hamel Sunset, and it has the same nice variegation that is like brushed with paint on the leaves. Okay, really, really nice, really, really interesting. And yeah, it's much more compact right now, so I'm hoping that it will stay kind of like this for a little while. Okay, because it's really, really nice. Okay, we have that nice impress. Okay, so now let's go on to our care tips for growing Crassula Ovata, and they are just like other Crassulas out there. You can probably check out my Crassula video, and they need this like very earthy type of potting mixes. No, not earthy, very organic heavy type of potting mixes. They don't want to be planted in pure pumice. They will struggle, and you will have a lot of problem if you plant them in a very pumice heavy potting mix, because they will get kind of confusing. Sometimes they look thirsty, and then you water them and then they rot. So that's what happens when you use too much pumice on them. So I would recommend adding a lot more organic materials. You can see on this one that I'm using a lot of organic materials, the dark colored potting mix right there, because yeah, I don't want to plant them in pure pumice anymore. And that's what I found success with. Okay, this is actually the first one that I've tried that I've had success with. This came first before all the other ones, and you can see I have some Anus compost right there. Anus compost is my go-to organic material in my potting mix, and then I mix it up with pumice. You can still see there are some pumice right there, but yeah, there is enough Anus compost to be noticeable. So I would recommend you add a lot more Anus compost or any other organic material on your potting mix, like a soilless potting mix. Okay, I would not recommend you use soil, though if you're planting them in the ground, you can probably adjust the ground, the composition of the materials on your landscape so that you can accommodate the jade plant, because I would not recommend you plant this in pure soil if you're in a tropical area. Okay, probably if you're in California, okay, you can grow them in pure soil. Okay, so these jade plants, yeah, as I said before, plant them in Anus compost and pumice potting mixes, and then give them full sun. So compared, the same with your other succulents, really, they require full sun to grow. You can get some burns on them if they are not established. So if you're worried about that, don't put them in full sun right away. Like, put them in the morning sun for a few weeks, or probably a week and a half. Put them in a semi-shaded space, but don't water them because they will rot. And once they acclimate to the sun and the temperature, you can give them much more full sun. So I would recommend that you only water them fully if you are growing them in a full sun location. So these plants of mine are already growing here in the greenhouse. They're not placed inside. There are some locations probably that you can keep your jade plants alive in a pretty shaded area, like indoors, but I would not recommend it. I would recommend you to still put these outside. These are not very indoor type of plants. And what I said before, if they get less sun, they get flappy. So they move their leaves downwards and they etiolate. They grow these long stems, and sometimes they will look like they're trailing, because they will look very ugly if you put them inside. So if you want them to stay on the more compact side, just grow them outside. Okay, but I believe there are some people who are able to grow this inside, or probably if you are using grow lights, you can grow them inside as well. Okay, what else? With the watering, as I said, if the leaves are kind of wilted and if the potting mix is dry already, you can check your potting mix. You can use not a toothpick. You can use a chopstick to check if the potting mix is dry already. And once the leaves are kind of wilted, then that is the time to water your succulent. And if the potting mix is just right, it will plump up back again. Okay, so that's what I would say with the Crassula Ovata. And also, you can water it by bottom watering, especially if the plant is dry already. So it's not one that will stay plump for a very long time. It can get thirsty very quickly because it's a Crassula. So you have to be mindful of that, compared with your other Echeverias and Graptopetalums that sometimes can take a long time before they get thirsty. This one will get thirsty pretty quickly. You won't wait forever to water it again. Now, when it comes to insect problems and to fertilizer, I would recommend that you just add a little bit of fertilizer from time to time. And when it comes to pests, I don't see a lot of pests on my plants. Okay, they don't get mealybugs very often, and if you do find mealybugs on them, it will be very obvious because they have this loose type of growth. So you will usually find the mealybugs right away, and I don't usually find mealybugs on my jade plants. They stay quite resilient to those type of pests. And probably I would say that the pest problem that you could have on these plants are how would I say this, spider mites. Okay, there are some spider mites. I used to have spider mites on my old jade plants, and they have this like webbing on the plant, and they are these like tiny spider thingies. So yeah, that could be a problem. You can use alcohol on cotton buds, okay, on Q-tips. You can place alcohol on that, and then you can remove any insect that you find on the plant. So you wouldn't really need to add insecticide onto its potting mix because it's not a real threat to these plants anyway. Insects are not a real threat on them, so you wouldn't need to use like our systemic insecticide that I'm using on my other plants. On fertilizing, you can also use Osmocote on them, but if you're growing them in less light locations and low light locations, don't put a lot of Osmocote on them because they will etiolate very quickly. They are fast growers. Okay, I would recommend you grow them in full sun, and if you're already added like some type of compost into the potting mix, then fertilization isn't really necessary. And sometimes fertilizers will also hinder the color of the plants, so you wouldn't want to use too much fertilizers. So yeah, I think that's about it for this video. I think I've already shared all of my thoughts on this one, and I didn't want to stretch it out for too long. If you have any questions with jade plants, with growing them, any problems, any concern, just comment it down below. And if you want to see more of our succulent classifying videos, please make sure to hit the subscribe so that you won't miss any of those videos here on the channel. I still have to make a lot of those because we still have a lot of plants to cover. But I think that's about it for this video, guys. I will see you on the next one. Bye-bye.